Did the injuries of Week 13 of your fantasy football season set your team back? Are you looking for a little edge as you head into your fantasy football playoffs? Well, then stay right here as we take a look at the waiver wire for Week 14 of your fantasy football season. I'm Anthony Aniano, happy to be with you here as we take a look at that waiver wire for Week 14, in some leagues, the final week of your fantasy football season. Let's start actually reminding everybody, Week 14, a smaller bye week, not a devastating bye week. Two teams on a bye, Arizona Cardinals and Washington Commanders, so you'll miss some players there. We did have some injuries in Week 14, quarterback position, Kenny Pickett. Derek Carr went out with kind of a multitude of aches and pains. Kenny Pickett with the ankle, Derek Carr kind of shoulder, ankle. They kind of explained it as almost everything. At the running back position, Ramondre Stevenson left with an ankle injury. Brian Robinson of the Washington Commanders left with a hamstring. Derrick Henry left with a concussion. And at the wide receiver position, Hollywood Brown played with the heel injury, couldn't finish the game. Puka Nacua had the rib shoulder injury, did come back though, and ran the ball. He still played effectively. Amari Cooper left the game with a head injury, and obviously the devastating injury of the week, the fractured fibula for Tank Dell. Essentially, it seems like knocking him out for the remainder of the season. So let's dive into it. Because of who we're missing, Kyler Murray and Sam Howell, you should be able to manage the quarterback position fine in Week 14. However, if you need some help there, Gardner Minshew would be the ad of the week at the quarterback position. 23% rostered, and a fantastic game in that comeback victory by the Indianapolis Colts. Goes 26 of 42, 312 yards and 2 touchdowns, including that game winner to Michael Pittman in overtime. He got Alec Pierce involved a bit, and we know Michael Pittman had a monster game. 22.7 fantasy points for Gardner Minshew on the road next week against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, at the running back position, I think this is where we're going to need the help, right? With Ramondre uncertain, with Brian Robinson on a bye next week, and then uncertain. And obviously Derrick Henry uncertain with a concussion. So a few running backs to be mindful of here. First would be, and I'll do them, I guess, in reverse order, but Antonio Gibson of the Washington Commanders. 56% rostered, so a little over that 50% rostership on Yahoo that we usually utilize. He's not a must-add, just simply because Washington's on a bye. Brian Robinson has 2 weeks for that hamstring to heal, and we'll hear more about that as the week goes on. Antonio Gibson went 10 for 35 on the ground and 4 catches for 37 yards, 11.2 fantasy points, doing most of that after Brian Robinson was injured in that blowout loss to the Miami Dolphins. Again, he has a bye next week, so he's not an urgent ad, but if you have Brian Robinson, you may want to make that move now for Antonio Gibson. Up next, Rashawn Johnson of the Chicago Bears. Yahoo has him at 21% rostered. Coming off their bye week, Deontay Foreman, remember, didn't play in Week 12 with the ankle. Rashawn Johnson outplayed and outperformed Khalil Herbert. Johnson in Week 12, 10 carries for 35 yards and was active in the passing game. 5 targets, 5 receptions for 40 yards. 12.5 fantasy points. The Bears go against the Detroit Lions in Week 14. The top 2 running back ads of the week, though. Number 2, Ezekiel Elliott of the New England Patriots. Patriots on the road against Pittsburgh in Week 14. Elliott is available in 60% of leagues. He's rostered in 40% of Yahoo formats. After Ramondre went out, 17 carries for 52 yards. So Bill Belichick had no issue giving Ezekiel Elliott the ball. He also had 5 targets, 4 receptions for 40 yards. It's his 3rd game this season of 10 or more fantasy points. Finished with 13.2 fantasy points, did Ezekiel Elliott. That Patriots offense is terrible. So I have Zeke at number 2. You can easily change that, though. If you've lost Ramondre, you want to make Ezekiel Elliott your priority ad at running back. Totally understandable. My number 1 running back ad of the week, though, is Tyjae Spears of the Tennessee Titans. I just think he's more explosive at this point in his career compared to Ezekiel Elliott. Now, the big factor is, what is Derrick Henry's status come Week 14? But if Henry is out, Tyjae Spears will emerge as a must-start running back for your fantasy teams as Tennessee goes up against the Miami Dolphins in Week 14. Spears is rostered in 35% of leagues, 16 carries for 75 yards after Derrick Henry went out with the concussion, 4 receptions, 13 yards on 6 targets, 12.8 fantasy points. Tyjae Spears, my top running back ad of the week, unless we suddenly get very good news about Derrick Henry. At the wide receiver position, a couple of wide receivers to be mindful of. Quinton Johnson of the Los Angeles Chargers was involved in this week's game against the New England Patriots. Didn't get in the end zone, we know. It was a 6-0 final. He's available in 80% of leagues, and he had a season-high 7 targets, 5 receptions, 52 yards, his best game of the season. He was second on the team in targets this week, behind only Keenan Allen. Finished with 10.2 fantasy points, and the Chargers go up against the Denver Broncos in Week 14. Also available, Elijah Moore of the Cleveland Browns, 43% rostered on Yahoo. The head injury to Amari Cooper leaves him uncertain for Week 14. Elijah Moore was a target favorite of Joe Flacco. He was targeted 11 times. Even though it was 11 times, he only had 4 catches, but it was for 83 yards, 12.3 fantasy points. Elijah Moore now has 20 targets in his last 2 games. Cleveland Browns, led by Joe Flacco, go up against the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 14. My top 2 wide receiver ads, however, of the week, Jonathan Mingo of the Carolina Panthers. 6% rostered, available in 94% of leagues. People are sleeping on Mingo right now as he's getting more work lately than Adam Thielen in Carolina. 10 targets, 6 receptions, 69 yards, 12.9 fantasy points. I get it. The problem is Carolina is struggling to throw the ball in the end zone. Okay, it's his second straight 10 or more fantasy point game for Jonathan Mingo. Like I said, 12.9 this week. He's got 22 targets in his last 3 games, does Mingo, for the Carolina Panthers. Second round pick this past April. So the rookie's starting to emerge after a slow start on his season. The Carolina Panthers go against the New Orleans Saints in Week 14. And finally, my top wide receiver ad of the week, Jaylen Hyatt of the New York Giants. Coming off a bye week, we know Tommy DeVito, Tommy Cutlets, as they're calling him now in the New York tri-state area. But Jaylen Hyatt, the rookie, another rookie, coming off his best game of the season in Week 12, when he had 5 catches for 109 yards, 6 targets. The Giants would be idiotic, for no other word, to not continue to get Jaylen Hyatt involved in the passing game. DeVito could throw the ball deep. It's the one thing he can do well, and Jaylen Hyatt is the best deep threat on that Giant team. No more Isaiah Hodgins, Paris Campbell, Sterling Shepard. Let's see what the second-round rookie can do, and I do think the Giants will do that. New York Giants go against the Green Bay Packers in Week 14 on Monday Night Football. And finally, if you need a tight end, we mentioned him heading into Week 12. We'll mention him again, but Isaiah Likely, remember, now the tight end for the Baltimore Ravens after Mark Andrews injured out for the year. Isaiah Likely, surprised by this, still only rostered in 35% of leagues. Week 12, he was targeted 6 times, 4 catches, 40 yards, 8 fantasy points. That was his first game without Mark Andrews. I expect him to continue to get more and more involved, and he has a very good matchup, a team that traditionally this season has struggled covering the tight end, and that is the Los Angeles Rams. So, to recap, my top 5 waiver wire ads for Week 14 of your fantasy football season. At number 5, Jonathan Mingo, wide receiver, Carolina Panthers. Number 4, Jaylen Hyatt, wide receiver, New York Giants. At number 3, Rashawn Johnson, running back, Chicago Bears. Number 2, Ezekiel Elliott, running back, New England Patriots. And number 1, Tajee Spears, running back, Tennessee Titans. All right, everybody, don't forget, now through New Year's Day, sign up for any premium pass at RotoBaller.com. Use the promo code HOLIDAY and save 30%. So take advantage of that great deal as well. Use the promo code ACES. Save if you want to say, hey, Anthony sent me. You can do that as well. Like and subscribe right here to the RotoBaller YouTube channel. And download the RotoBaller app. It's free, so take advantage of that great offer as well. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. As always, we will see you next time right here on RotoBaller Radio.